You got it. Sorry, Kayla. Oh, I was attempting to start that recording with the wrong device as you were
That's
talking
okay.
there. So just to recap, Commissioner Marcella is joining us virtually, and for logistics, I'll be running the meeting in person today. All right, and first on our agenda, we have the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence. If you all would also take a brief moment to turn off your cell phones for us, and please join me. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First on the agenda, we have approval of the agenda. I've not heard that we need to rearrange or remove anything. Check. Yep. Okay. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda as posted.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion?
None for me.
No, thank you.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. And next we have community informational items. Commissioner Marcella, do you have anything for us?
No, I don't think so today. Just we submitted our capital application to CDOT and the Federal Transit Authority for a vehicle for our transit plan. And then we'll move into the implementation phase next with reviewing the required documents and legal information that's needed for us to comply with Federal Transit Authority funding. So that's next on our plate, and developing kind of the work that goes into picking places for bus stops and that kind of thing. So that's next on our agenda to get this moving forward, and that's really all I've got for today. Oh, and also just to let everybody know, COVID is still here, so tests are still available at the Public Health Department if you need them.
All right, great, thank you. Commissioner Fiedler?
Nothing for me.
Okay, I don't have anything today either. Alrighty, moving on, and I did post the first 5 new business items in the chat, and I'm having difficulty copying and pasting the last 5. But I'll keep working on that as we go. Do we have any commissioner clarifications? I have none.
None for me.
None from me either.
Okay. And do we have any public comments on items not on the agenda? We do not have any public in the room here. And I suppose Mabel is joining us on behalf of Public Works. All right.
The only thing I'd like to mention is the airport breakfast on the 24th of September. Open to the public.
Great, thank you, Michael. Airport breakfast, 24th of September. Awesome. Great, okay. Seeing no other public comment, we will go into items, new business. Shall we, because Anne is not here, will she be here momentarily, Tim, or should we move down to number 5, discussion of financial management system and policies?
5 or do 7 really quick.
Yeah, 6 or 7 will be quick, and then I can go back to work.
I'm trying to stay here.
Okay, yeah, we could do 6.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do 6. Very good. All right, okay. So community planning and development is not here for the first few agenda items, so we're going to jump to 6 because our public works folks are here. So Michael, come on up if you'd like, or speak from there. We can hear you, and so can the audience now.
Yeah.
Item 6 is, because I didn't put it in the chat, although discussion and potential decision on amending the resolution 21-05, a resolution regarding the use and fees for the Lake County landfill. And potential amending that to potentially increase fees by allowing for an annual increase of 3%. So go ahead, Mike.
So when the resolution was adopted before, I think everybody thought that it had this in there.
Yeah.
And it didn't, so we're just asking to add that to that. So everybody knows that the price of the landfill will go up with the COLA every.
And was it a fixed 3%? Is that part of your, is that
With the
part of your
COLA,
like
whatever.
10-year projections of, because the point of increasing those fees too was to earmark funds for the cell every few handful of years that we had to
Yeah. So
expand the landfill and do cell
you have an expansion already
work.
in the works.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. I did recall that we all thought that that was included, an increase was already included. I did not recall whether that was 3% or not. Okay.
I think it was just a COLA increase, whatever the COLA was for that year. At 3%.
And that, so the, what you did approve earlier this year was a one-time increase. I don't know the percent change of that, but usually, normally it's, something's indexed to CPI changes, the consumer price index change. I don't think the board wants to go with 9% this year, but you are
Yeah.
open to. You can always, have it, I mean, it could be amended in the future. It's just easier to have like the set policy of the set rate increase, and 3% seemed like a good number and a good average to account for increasing costs and then provide for the increasing the cell, opening the new cell.
I definitely like the idea of indexing. Also, I don't know if it makes sense to amend it to like round to the nearest dollar, just so you're not like, so it's not some weird.
Yeah, it does, because change is a little ridiculous out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be good.
How can we incorporate that into the language then? Pretty easily? Just make a
We could
motion.
say the 3% CPI increase rounded to the nearest dollar.
Are you saying CPI, or are you gonna tag it to CPI? Because that's something
we
that
just say-
fluctuates,
Right.
can fluctuate so much depending on economic conditions that, I don't know if I'd suggest that, my suggestion would be just essentially say either that or a flat fee, and what the average is, if you're looking at what the average has been in terms of increases in the last number of years. I don't know what.
I mean, let's just do
Yeah.
3%, because then at least we're not falling behind,
Yeah.
and yeah, who knows?
Yeah,
And you
and the
could
last
do
time-
3% rounded up to the next whole dollar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
last time we
that sounds
raised
good.
them, we only raised certain things like a yard of trash. We didn't raise all of,
Right.
this would affect all of the prices of the landfill.
I would expect that your expenses are going up at least 3%
Yeah,
every
we-
year, if not more,
With
so,
fuel, it's like
yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I have no more questions for you on this, really. Commissioner Fiedler, Commissioner Marcella, do you have any questions for Michael?
No, I don't have any questions on this.
And then we're amending 2205, or are we?
I think, yeah, it's 20, because they're
Substituting
22 or 21?
21, 2105, because 2105
2105.
references 1539, which was the last time. Did we change it?
Yeah.
Okay, so we haven't changed anything since 2015. So I think amending 2105 is appropriate, and we can add a section that would stop the fees that will increase annually by 3%, rounded to the next whole dollar.
Right.
I move that we amend resolution 21-05 regarding the use and fees for Lake County landfill, increasing annually at 3%, rounded up to the next whole dollar.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion?
None for me.
None for me, thank you.
Great. Okay, nothing for me either. Alrighty, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Alright, thank you, Michael.
I got one question.
Yeah.
Before we leave that, do we need to put the start date of January on there, 2023? Does that matter?
Was that your intention
Yeah.
to start
Not
as an
immediately.
effective date? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to have the amended language effective as of January 1, 2023.
Yeah, don't we have to have it in there now, just.
So I move that the approved increases that amend resolution 21-05 take effect on January 1st of each year, starting in 2023.
I'll second that.
Alrighty, any further discussion?
No, thank you.
All those in favor on the effective date, the motion regarding the effective date? Aye.
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 All right. Great. Thank you very much. Okay, and sorry for those of you that have joined us. I may not have kept good tabs on the waiting room there. So if there's any public that have joined us after our first item of new business that would like to submit public comment or make a public comment, I'd like to open that back up for an opportunity right now. Oh, thank you. All right, I don't hear any interest in public comments for those who have joined us. Hearing nothing, we will go back to item number 1 of new business. We just looked at item 6 because staff was in the room to address that, but we'll go back to 1. And we have Ann Schneider here to go through the next few items for us. So come on up, please, Ann, or stay there, whatever's more comfortable now that we can all hear well. So item 1 is file number 22-16, Wilson ADU conditional use permit, presented by Ann Schneider. Desired outcome is our decision on CUP.
Great, thank you so much. I have a statement of motion with a recommendation from the Planning Commission. At its August 29th, 2022 joint public hearing, the Lake County Planning Commission made, seconded, and approved by roll call vote of 4 members in favor and 0 members in opposition. The following motion, the motion having been made by Joey Edwards and seconded by Bryce Ehrlich. They move that the Planning Commission recommend conditional approval to the Board of County Commissioners of file number 2216, a conditional use permit application for an accessory dwelling unit on a parcel of land of less than 1 acre pursuant to the standards of section 5.3.1B at 110 West 12th Street, further finding that the approval criteria pursuant to the Lake County Land Development Code section 3.6.1F have been met as evidenced in the staff report dated August 29th, 2022 for file 2216. The conditions for approval are: 1, the application for a lot consolidation shall be submitted prior to the submitting the building permit application. Number 2, should the shed be found not in compliance with the Lake County Building Code, a building permit for it shall be submitted along with the building permit application for the ADU. And number 3, each of the utility providers shall provide evidence to staff that the ADU will be served. And further finding that the proposed conditional use is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies contained in the Lake County Comprehensive Plan. 2, that the proposed conditional use conforms to the requirements and provisions of this code. Number 3, that as conditioned, adequate public safety, transportation, and utility facilities will be available to serve the subject property while maintaining sufficient levels of service for existing development. Number 4, that as conditioned, the proposed conditional use is not likely to be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare of county residents or to cause hardship for neighboring persons. Number 5, that as conditioned, the proposed conditional use is consistent with and in harmony with neighboring land uses and future intended land uses in the area. Number 6, that as conditioned, the proposed conditional use will not result in overly intensive use or the land relative to the surrounding land. Number 7, that as conditioned, the proposed conditional use will not result in traffic congestion or hazards to vehicular or pedestrian traffic. Number 8, that as conditioned, the proposed conditional use will not unnecessarily scar the land on which such use would be located. Number 9, that as conditioned, the proposed site for conditional use is and will be free from natural or man-made hazards, or that such hazards can and will be adequately mitigated. Number 10, that as conditioned, the proposed site for the conditional use is and will be free from natural or man-made hazards, or that such hazards can and will be adequately mitigated. So reading the findings on this first one, and then the motions will just evidence of them of the staff report. We just wanted to have them on the record as we discuss the next, we've got 3 conditional use permits. So just included the findings, but the next motions include the findings and they're talked about in the staff report, so I won't have to do it every time. This particular application, a few things came up that everyone heard in the public hearing, and that was that the lots have not been consolidated. There are 3, so they'll need to vacate those lot lines and get all of the uses within the same parcel. And that there is this shed on the property that's been there for a period of time that the previous owner built and did not get a building permit for. And the code standard is you don't need a building permit if it is a single story and it doesn't have any habitable space and it's less than 200 square feet, then you don't need a building permit. Not sure what the status of this shed is, but we need to take a look at it and determine if a building permit needs to be applied to it. And so when asking for a new entitlement on the parcel, we just have to look at the parcel overall and see if there's any other zoning aspects that need to be addressed. So those 2 are just specific to existing site conditions. And then the other is a little redundant because a building permit, we do have to have utility sign-offs from local sanitation, portable water. ADUs typically require additional tap fees. So we do require those, but those are the 3 conditions. During the deliberation on this file, the only things that the planning commission added is that they feel that adding additional housing stock is very beneficial in this time of really needing an additional inventory. There was a little bit of discussion in the application. The applicant spoke about the possibility of using this space as a short-term rental or a long-term rental. Primarily, the use of the property is going to be to sustain family use. They have the primary house, it doesn't have enough bedrooms to accommodate the size of their family. So when their kids are home from college, they want to be able to have a space as well as relatives to come and stay. But they were looking to see if there was a possibility of finding some income benefit to sustainability as a primary property use. So both conversations were in the application, both the short-term rental use as well as potentially long-term rental use, and that they may be seeking that down the road. Of course, that is a separate issue, and it will be wherever the code lands down the road if they need if short-term rental license would be available to them or not.
After the moratorium,
Yes.
because there's no
Yes.
existing license on that property.
There's no existing license, and this conversation's been had with the applicant as well.
Great.
I think that's everything on this one, unless you have any questions on this particular file.
No, I don't have anything. Just for clarification, I mean, I think it is clear, but the shed and then there's a garage that this ADU would be replacing, but the shed, like you said, is a different issue just to get like complete compliance across the parcel on the lot consolidation and figuring out what is
Right.
happening.
Exactly. There is an existing garage that they are going to remove.
Right.
That's on the site plan in the application. So they'll remove that garage. I think they intend to continue to use the shed. So we just need to see if a building permit is appropriate, and we will assist them through that process, of course.
I had a question just out of curiosity. So if the building permit, like potentially the shed's like not up to code and they would have to do something
So we do what we call a permit after construction, which, we try to find a pathway to compliance that doesn't create a hardship, but we just have to take it on a case-by-case basis. And so we can inspect the things we can see. Sometimes that means a bit of deconstruction. Sometimes that means having a third party look at it for structure, stability, and things like that. So,
Okay.
sure.
Commissioner Marcelo, do you have any questions for Anne on file number 2216?
No, I don't think so at this time. I think you guys covered the questions I had lingering, so I don't have anything additional.
Right. I'll entertain a motion to approve file 22-16 as read into the record by staff.
I move that we approve file number 2216 as presented.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
None for me.
None for me either, thank you.
Great, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Thank you, Anne. And moving on to file number 22-17, Outfitter Guide Conditional Use Permit for Interlochen Investments LLC, Twin Lakes Sup and Cycle. Again, presented by Anne.
Okay, this is a conditional use permit for an outfitter and guide to be located at the Twin Lakes Inn. At the back of the structure is an additional area that they have set up their operations. And for Twin Lakes Sup and Cycle, as you said. The address of the property is 6435 Highway 82. And I have a motion from the Planning Commission for conditional approval. At its August 29, 2022 joint public hearing, the Lake County Planning Commission made, seconded, and approved by a roll call vote of 4 members in favor and 0 members in opposition, the following motion. The motion having been made by Bryce Ehrlich and seconded by Joey Edwards. The Planning Commission recommends conditional approval to the Board of County Commissioners of file 2217, a conditional use permit application for an outfitter and guide known as the Twin Lakes Sup and Cycle LLC on the Twin Lakes Inn property addressed at 6435B Highway 82 in Twin Lakes, pursuant to the standards of section 5.2.23 outfitter and guide, further finding that the approval criteria pursuant to the Lake County Land Development Code section 3.6.1F have been met as evidenced in the staff report dated August 29th, 2022 for file 2217. The conditions for approval are: 1, the site shall be inspected by the building department for any potential hazards. There will be a small fee. Number 2, the CUP is only for the rental, sales, and service of recreational equipment on the site proposed. Should the business or operator change, it may be that a new CUP will be necessary. Community planning and development shall be consulted. Number 3, should the applicant determine to provide any food or drink, the Lake County Environmental Health Department shall be consulted. Number 4, all representations made in the application and the hearing shall be considered as conditions of approval. And number 5, rental of OHV is not allowed. And so I think the only part of this application during the deliberation that was further discussed was the fact that this is an area they thought it would look significant, this ask would be significantly different and have a litany of different impacts if any kind of motorized equipment was rented. And so there was a strong belief by the members of the Planning Commission that it was important to further condition the conditional use permit with the prohibition of any type of OHV rental. There was a discussion with the applicant about any further plans, if they had any intention to add this, and they very much did not. And they were not interested in adding this, and kind of universally agreed that this would change the nature and character of their business in a manner that they weren't interested in. So I think that includes everything that I have about the deliberation.
Anne, can you talk a little bit more about condition two, that should the business or operator change, it may be that the new CUP will be, a new CUP will be necessary, because our CUPs typically run.
Absolutely. So, CUPs run with the land unless there's a substantial change. So if, since these are tenants, that are renting, the space from the property owner,
Yes.
if that relationship were terminated at some point and they wanted to bring in a new outfitter and guide that was substantially different, Jeep tours or, something different that, doesn't fit the same model, that what is currently being done, that they would come and talk to us about that, and we would make a decision if a new CUP was appropriate or not. We'd look at it on a case-by-case basis, but if this relationship changed between the current company and the property owner, and they wanted to continue with someone new, we just want them to consult with us before they assume that the CUP would still be appropriate.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
Sure.
I don't have any other questions for you, Commissioner Fiedler, Commissioner.
I don't have any questions.
No, I don't have any questions on this one.
All right, happy to entertain a motion.
I move that we approve file number 22-17 as presented in the statement of motion with the 5 conditions for approval.
I'll second that.
Great, any further discussion?
None from
None
me.
from me.
All right, hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Great. Okay, and item number 3, we are on to file number 22-18, another outfitter guide conditional use permit for Twin Lakes General Store, Mount Albert Canoe and Kayak.
So file 2218 is another, as you said, outfitter and guide. The applicants on this are Bob Mathis, the owner of the Twin Lakes General Store, and Paul Pinley, who operates and owns Mount Albert Canoe and Kayak. These are, the address of this is 6451 Highway 82. And this are for more flotation type rentals, canoes and kayaks. And he has 2 areas of operation, Turquoise and Twin Lakes, through his Forest Service permit. And the following recommendation has been made by the Planning Commission. At its August 29th, 2022 joint public hearing, the Lake County Planning Commission made, seconded, and approved by a roll call vote of 4 members in favor and 0 members in opposition the following motion. The motion having been made by Joey Edwards and seconded by Bryce Ehrlich. I move that the Planning Commission, moved that the Planning Commission recommend conditional approval to the Board of County Commissioners of file 2218. The conditional use permit application for an outfitter and guide on the Twin Lakes General Store property addressed at 6451 Highway 82 in Twin Lakes pursuant to the standards of section 5.2.23 outfitter and guide. Further finding that the approval criteria pursuant to the Lake County Development Code, section 3.6.1F, have been met as evidenced in the staff report dated August 29th, 2022 for file 2218. The conditions for approval are: 1, the site should be inspected by the building department for potential hazards, such as the provision of electricity. There will be a small fee. Number 2, the CUP is only for the rental of flotation equipment on the site proposed. Should the business or operator change, it may be that a new CUP will be necessary. Community planning and development shall be consulted. Number 3, should the applicant determine to provide any food or drink, the Lake County Environmental Health Department shall be consulted. Number 4, all representations made in the application and the hearing shall be considered as conditions of approval. And number 5, rental of OHV is not allowed. So same discussion and a condition applied on this one as far as OHV. And the building department review here is that it appears that electricity is being shared via an extension cord from the store. And we just want to make sure that there's no fire hazards associated with that. We will also, most likely the building department will consult with the Lake County Fire Rescue just to make sure that that use is appropriate, or the applicant will need to find a different method to maintain whatever that they need on site. Those are the conditions for approval on that one.
Okay. No questions for you, Commissioner Fiedler, Commissioner Marcel?
None for me.
None for me either. I guess, Anne, just with that electricity piece, just to make sure that there's not any kind of issue with that with the electric company, or would there be any kind of issue with that?
We will review that, when we take a look at it. It's being used on the same property. It's not a separate parcel. And so
Okay.
it's not extension, from one address or parcel to another. So it'd be the same as, using an extension cord outside on a, so
Okay.
I don't anticipate any conflict there.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted a question or a point of clarification. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, if there aren't any further questions for staff, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of file 22-18.
I move that we approve file number 22-18 as presented in the statement of motion with the 5 conditions for approval.
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion?
None for me.
Nothing from me.
None for me either, thank you.
All right, hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. And now we have item number 4. Okay, resolution 22-23, LDC amendment special event facility, Lake County Development Code amendment for special event facility. Go ahead, Ian.
Thank you so much. So this is a legislative code amendment brought forward by staff. We have identified, there are so many uses, new uses. So I think that, and this is one that we've identified, we feel has been lacking in the code to give clarity. Too often we've lumped uses into group camp. It's kind of been a catch-all whenever we've had kind of a group coming together to do any activity. And so we really wanted to find something that spoke specific to celebrations, weddings, corporate retreats, things of that nature. And we wanted to make that a more specific use with more specific standards associated with it. Some areas that we've had 2 work sessions on this with the Planning Commission and the board. And some of the areas of concern were, what should the density be? And so finally, staff has crafted a standard that suggests or states such uses require a minimum of 10 acres of land area. Allowable occupancy shall be determined through the conditional review process based upon the degree of impact relative to the surrounding area and shall not exceed 20 people per acre. So that is twice the density of a group camp, but it allows the flexibility. There was a lot of discussion. This started off as 10 people per acre, and given the nature of the events that would be happening, there was a thought that was too restrictive. But then there was, also wanting to be able to take it on a case-by-case basis relative to the impact. And so that's how this standard developed. The other thing that we included within the standards were the submittal requirements for an event management plan. We added in the wildfire mitigation plan to align with all of the work that's being done with wildfire mitigation planning. So that was added as well. But the Planning Commission has addressed everything, thinks that this is a very comprehensive amount of standards that really addresses the level of concern and impacts that they identified through the work session and the work that was done on creating this. So the amendment will do several things. It will add the use into table 5.1 conditionally in the zones that it will be allowed in. And it will be conditionally allowed in the ag forestry, the ag residential, the urban residential, the business, the recreational, And through our work, during public hearing, it was decided it would be also appropriate in the backcountry zone district conditionally. That is the recommendation from the Planning Commission, based largely on the degree of the standards. The standards being the density and acreage, road access shall be approved by Lake County Road and Bridge, such usage shall not compromise the character of the underlying zone district by providing for significantly more intense uses for the land or roads. Such usage shall not compromise the scenic quality of the location in which the facilities are located. 5, such uses shall not create noise in excess of 70 decibels for more than one consecutive minute between the hours of 11 p.m. and 8 a.m. The facility shall maintain a 50-foot setback around all perimeter property lines. 7, there shall be no on-street parking within the right-of-way of any public or county road during events. 8, all utilities shall be installed underground. 9, facilities shall have adequate water and wastewater facilities, either permanent or temporary, approved by the Lake County Health Department. 10, all lighting shall comply with the Lake County dark sky regulations. 11, at least 60% of the natural landscape and existing vegetation on the site must be preserved. 12, all trash collection shall be screened and designed to prohibit entrance by animals and wildlife. 13, the possession or discharge of fireworks is prohibited. And then the emergency management plan, it's very, it was designed to be very robust and to cover all of the areas of concern that were brought up. So it's the general description of the facility and whether the use will be seasonal, the types of events anticipated, and the total number and frequency of events, proposed maximum number of guests at one event, specific details of where events will be conducted, examples in buildings or tents, the wildfire mitigation plan, traffic parking management plan, provisions for power supply, provision for water and wastewater supply, provision for refuse management and schedule for removal, provisions for catering facilities, alcohol management, including parties responsible for proper licenses. So it was really, designed to be a good operational and kind of event management plan to include some safety aspects. And so that is the reason I do not have the resolution prepared, because the resolution will be very specific to how it's going to look in the code. So I just wanted to allow today if there were any changes that the board wanted, and then I'll prepare the resolution and have it ready for you by your next regular meeting.
Okay. Questions for Anne?
Oh, and I guess I need to read the motion. I'm so sorry. I launched right into that and didn't give you the motion.
Okay.
So
I have a question for you
Sure.
though, if you could remind us all, so how the special event facility change to the land development code, adding that as a condition is really intended. Is there a different intention on that compared to like the one time, you use your land to host a friend's wedding or something, and is that and ideally you would get a special event permit for that.
Right.
But to have to go through the CUP process, what will trigger, how will that
So-
be different?
Couple different things is, any construction that is going to be supportive of this, it's an actual facility. If you're going to use your parcel, I would say on a routine basis. A special event permit is, hey, I just got approached and I'm gonna do this one time, great. But if you're going to advertise, if you're gonna routinely do it and use your parcel as a venue, then you're using it as commercial use. And so, that kind of, that would trigger the conditional use permit. So construction of anything, routine, use of the parcel for this manner, advertising it in this manner, basically conducting commercial activities on site.
Thanks. All right. Commissioner Marcel, anything for Anne before she reads the statement of motion?
No, I don't think so. I just think about the impact and 20 people per acre. So if you had like a 50-acre parcel, that's 1,000 people on that parcel, up to 1,000 people in the backcountry.
Subject to, but subject to the specifically,
In the table of uses, I think the backcountry would be a zone where you would have to get a separate, well,
No,
you'd
no,
have
no.
you'd have to be permitted through the
Yeah.
CUP, and so that would, you'd look at that specifically and say, okay, you only have a 10-acre parcel, and maybe 100 people is too much,
So,
depending on the
right,
location.
yeah, and you have to, you have to think about, I think that's the whole point that we made that standard, like, we did, or, that we worked together to do, was that allowed occupancy shall be determined through the conditional review process based upon the degree of impact relative to the surrounding area. So, but it can't exceed that, so it's not an automatic by any, that's not the interpretation that, from the, or that's not meant to be the interpretation of that standard. You have to come in and, I would immediately say that that kind of density doesn't support the zone district, and the intent of the zone district. So, I think we put a no more than as a safety valve, but I don't think that it's a given that you could have that many, because I think that there's so many other factors that need to be applied, to the use before such a density would be granted. And, that would far exceed any kind of, use that we currently have in even a mixed use density, like business or, something that has access. So the fact that we need approval for the access alone, that probably would over maximize, so many of the natural resources that we're looking to preserve, especially in the backcountry.
Okay, I just think about some of those parcels or some of those places, like, you have a parcel upstate in Kevin Gulch or those kinds of places, and it's big enough to accommodate under this use standard, 200 people, and that's like 100 vehicles on that road, and like, I just think that it could very well, like, you apply and you shoot for the stars to get as much as you can to maximize your parcel, and I just want to make sure that there's some way to, like, through the conditional use permit process, yes, but that just seems like a lot.
Absolutely, and I think that you're exactly right. The number 3, such uses shall not compromise the character of the underlying zone district by providing for significantly more intense uses of the land or roads. So I think, right, that standard would be very hard for an applicant to overcome with a use of that magnitude. And then also, relying on the conditional use permit standards as well. So I think between not meeting the standard for the use specific to those outlying standards, as well as the approval criteria, specifically that proposed conditional use is consistent with and in harmony with neighboring land uses and future intended land uses, that the proposed conditional use will not result in overly intensive use or the land relative to the surrounding area. So I think that, there would be definitely findings that would protect against that kind of intensity and that kind of increase in density.
Okay, I just think about that, and I think about safety issues in some of those places where this special event permit could be utilized, and like access from CDOT or those kinds of things that may also impact this, and it just seems like a lot to me, and I think I don't know, I just struggle with it a little bit. I just think it's a lot of use for a parcel of land to 20 people per acre, up to that's a lot.
I wonder, Anne, I imagine a lot of other conditional use permits coming through that have this request woven together, layered with a backcountry like a lodging or something.
Okay.
Sorry, what were you?
No, go over my head.
And even some that exist that might come forward and ask that this now perhaps be incorporated into that. Do you see a lot of that happening kind of simultaneously?
No, I
Potentially.
don't think we are processing currently one backcountry application. We don't have any others, we had Tennessee Pass Sleeping Yurts was in backcountry, so that was a conditional use permit, obviously. They weren't trying to exceed what the zone district character was put in place for. But I think that what you want to have and what you want to make sure that you feel for yourselves and in perpetuity for future boards, future planning commissions, future staff, is that you have a code that will protect the character of the zone district and make sure that there's enough within the code to point to when an application, if and when an application comes in that manner. Think about when that application for that kind of density would be reviewed, it's going to go to emergency management, fire rescue. It's going to go to all the partners and maybe adjacent lands, maybe Forest Service. I think that you would hear through that vetted process a very evidentiary portion of that hearing that would give you the reliance and ability, and then with the findings, to be able to address those kind of asks, and to potentially condition it in a manner that would be conducive to measure on these standards. So I think that you have the tool to find that a use that is overly intensive puts the safety and welfare of the community at risk, puts the environment at risk. That'll be vetted through the review process, as well as you have the standards and standards for the use, as well as the findings for a conditional use permit. All of those layered together, I think, are your protections that in perpetuity, this code can be applied to applications in a manner that will be protective of those concerns. I think they're very much written to avoid any potential exploitation of a parcel as far as environmental or health and safety, personal safety, public safety, all of those. That's the nature of the proposed standards, as well as the conditional permit findings. So I would just encourage you that I think that there's quite a bit of layering in there, and then also looking at the backcountry zone and its whole intent statement and that defines it.
Yeah.
A use like that would be in conflict immediately with what is considered appropriate in backcountry.
Right.
So yeah, but you could absolutely add a standard, modify a standard. That's why I kind of held off on the resolution, just in case you thought that anything needed to be dialed in. So the 20 is not an automatic. It's a no more than, but that standard's built to address the proposal relative to the surrounding area.
I can appreciate the concern from Commissioner Marcella, but I also, it's a funny number, because an acre to only be able to host 10 people seems a little funny, if that's the max on some event. So it's just like a weird scaling of that. And I wouldn't anticipate, who knows? I think I struggled through this in just allowing, when we were talking about the table uses and adding the backcountry zoning and allowing the group camps and all of that kind of commercial use, but ultimately had to land on the confidence in staff to go through and use discretion with what we've included in the code. So I guess that's where I have comfort landing now.
Yeah. I also think to your point, Sarah, like it depends. Is this sort of like a half hour event, or is this like overnight? It's a huge difference on the number of people, and what the impact on any piece of land would be. So it's hard to, like 1,000 people on some land for like 24 hours would be crazy.
Right.
But then, yeah, like 10 an acre, so would be too small in a lot
Mhm.
of cases, so, yeah,
Well, and the minimum is 10 acres, right, to apply for a permit. So 20 people per acre, you know. I mean, that's still a lot for 10 acres. Or, I mean, if you're having, you know, I don't know, whatever kind of event out there and there's 200 people plus, but because that's what this standard says. And let's say that it's conditionally permitted 5 times a summer. That's 1,000 people on that parcel through the summer, on any given road in the summer. And it just seems like it could get excessive.
But that's not an automatic, that's not a, you shall be able to have this density, it's that it will never exceed that density.
Mhm.
So, like you said, if you know, if you're talking 800 people or, you know, kind of at this excessive schedule without good access in an area that the surrounding area isn't conducive, if there are wildlife concerns, if there's forest service concerns, if there's, is it potentially available? Yes, subject to all of the standards and the criteria within the conditional use permit. So I would agree, it was a very hard back and forth. The original draft that staff wrote was 10 per acre. But then, you know, through the work sessions, there was discussion on, but what about a parcel that is fairly accessible, has good parking, and is it unreasonable to have 200 people on 10 acres in an area that, you know, has all of these different attributes? And they, you know, the general consensus was they wanted to allow, so you can just kind of mindset that created this, or what I heard and how I created it was some areas, when you're looking at all the zone districts that this is conditionally allowed in, it would be reasonable. Some it will not. So they needed a standard that would put a no more than, but with the ability to take it on a case by case basis. And that's how the standard kind of evolved. Was to give the ability to look at you know, what was in harmony with the area and to allow that higher density in areas that would make sense.
And if there's a commercial property that's promoting that, they would also need a Forest Service permit if they were surrounded by Forest Service lands and using
If they're going to use any
the
portion,
roads
right,
and the portions, and
right.
they'd have to go through that if they were going to have that kind of activity or intended to have that activity on a routine basis. Right?
Right, yes.
Okay.
If it has, if they're using access, if they're going to use any portion, then they would have to go through the permitting process for the Forest Service. Obviously, too, if you heard from your partners for the Forest Service or CPW, you know, this is detrimental to a habitat, it's detrimental to land management in an area. I would think that would weigh very heavily on the outcome and decision that would be made.
Mhm.
So, you know, this wouldn't be, you know, all conditional use permits, certainly something like this has our standard referral, plus additional stakeholders would be identified over our statutory requirements and our codified requirements.
So Anne, so that's just up to that number. So
Correct.
theoretically then, if somebody applied for it, it could be granted. If we had a change in staff and we had a change in Board of County Commissioners and we had a change in Planning Commission, it could be granted. And so having that amount of vehicles and that amount of people on, you know, a 10-acre parcel just seems like a lot.
Sure. Yeah, it would still be, you know, subject to the event management plan, but yes, you know, different board may have a different thought about it, different planning commissions might have a different, so it is a no more than,
Okay.
but the standards have to be adhered to as well.
I don't know. I don't have anything better to offer, Commissioner Marcel, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I just think, like if you have a 10 acre parcel of property and it, whether it's, like out in the back country or it's abutting up to a neighborhood, you have 10 acres at 200 people max and that gets awarded. I mean, those are things that have to, like, it flows with the land, and those are things that just need to be considered with those permits, and I think it's a lot. I think, that would be a lot to permit too. I mean, and again, it is, the owner's property, but it's the surrounding properties and the roads and the traffic and the emergency vehicles and all those kinds of things that should be taken into consideration. And I understand that it is taken into consideration with a conditional use permit. But I just think that that's a lot for the potential that could be awarded.
Well, that brings up remind us what the conversation may have been around, I mean, the type of, I don't want to pick on the Jeep Jamboree, but say you have the Jeep Jamboree come in for an event, that could be a lot different than a hiking convention where everyone's like coming on the CT and there's no vehicles and there's,
Right.
so how will that be considered?
A Jeep Jamboree, so that's a special use permit to me, because they're not owning a parcel. This is, a parcel that's owned, they wanna routinely do something on. So I guess if a property owner was a member of a Jeep club that they wanted to use the parcel to set up a routine jamboree, and they were going to use this in perpetuity, and this is what it was going to be designed for, they could apply. I would say that, potentially they could apply, but, they've got noise, they've got setbacks, they've got,
But I think
lighting.
the
Yeah.
question, like, I think, I'm wondering, when you apply for the special event facility use, you're not necessarily, what if you don't specify one particular use? And you just have
Must.
it,
Yeah, I mean,
you must.
So you have to, right here, it says you need to do a general description of the special event facility. I would imagine that a planning commission and a board of county commissioners and types of events anticipated and total number and frequency of events. Proposed maximum number of guests at one event. So specific details of where events will be conducted. So the nature of applying for it would be to identify what type of use. I would caution a applicant about coming in saying, we're just gonna do a special event facility and we wanna cover everything from corporate retreats to a Jeep Jamboree. I also think that that opens up that applicant for not being able to show consistency with all of the standards and the conditional use permit. I think there's a higher success is that, this is meant to address things like weddings, corporate retreats, yoga retreats. Those kind of intense uses, I would say that there's enough in this code with the standards and the ask of the applicant to narrow it down to be very specific, and then the granting of the conditional use permit would be very specific to that application. So if somebody wanted to come in and do something that generalized, they still have a very vested interest in making sure, that their area would sustain and be lucrative for them in the big picture. So I'd be hard pressed to think that someone that wanted to come in and create a space for things that's more of a wedding or corporate retreat would also open the door to those kind of uses. But if they did, I think that the standards would really allow the ability for future boards and future planning commissions to really address that in a pretty meaningful way. But the density question is difficult, and it was drafted more conservatively at first, and then opened up for the ability to consider a higher density, very specific to the application and the surrounding area.
I'm still comfortable with that and kind of checking all those criteria boxes and all of that. Vetting as the application comes in, and I wonder if, I think over at least the next 2 years as this board is sitting as a board, we would look at how those impacts maybe happen or how this actual code change is getting utilized. I might offer to Commissioner Marcella in the same way that we kind of did backcountry zoning, just that condition over like really monitoring and having a report back on what this looks like, though I think that inherently should and will happen. Commissioner Marcella, does that satisfy your concern? I'm not sure that, go ahead.
No, I think that that's helpful. I just, I just hope that all those things are taken into consideration with a conditional use permit, our backcountry is getting used more and more and more, and it's becoming more and more crowded, and having 200 vehicles on a 10-acre parcel in the backcountry seems contradictory to what we tried to do with backcountry zoning. So I just struggle with that a little bit.
Would you suggest to that backcountry just alone needs to be different because this is applied across all zones?
No, not necessarily backcountry either, because there are parcels that are close to neighborhoods that don't have adequate egress and those kinds of things. And, having 200 vehicles through a neighborhood that has no egress access 6 times a summer, like that's kind of a big impact. So, I just think that there's a lot of things to consider with it. And if it's taken on a case-by-case basis with a conditional use permit and monitored, that's a little better. I just still struggle with it a little.
I'm always nervous to sort of try to edit stuff on the fly, but I wonder if we could add a condition where if the total number of participants is say 200 and over, there's a stronger review of traffic and emergency provisions of the plan. At that point, at a certain point, someone has 50 acres or 40 acres, which isn't hard to get. That's a lot of people on a potentially poor gravel road, one way in. So again, to be clear, the consider is above a certain number of people. Because again, to Kayla's point, 100, 150, 300 and up, wow, that's a lot of people in some places.
You could put a cap on, it shall not exceed 20 people per acre up to a certain total number, not to exceed 400, 500. I don't know. I don't know exactly what that number should be.
Yeah, for me, I think it's so situation dependent, especially I'm thinking some places have a turn lane, and it's paved. That's kind of fine, maybe not thousands of people, but that's a whole different story than a crummy potholed, dirt road with no pullout lane and not well marked.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think that's part of what I struggle with is that, some people have better access, some parcels have better access than others. And how can you guarantee that you're not putting an undue burden on an adjacent property owner or a strain on the emergency services or the access with that density?
Well, I think we have to have a little bit of reliance, on our review agencies in the process, because all of the things that you pointed out, those are at the heart of what our emergency management folks would be looking at specific to, and now that we do a more robust engagement on applications with the community development team, and we really, we're doing a more active discussion before things come forward to the decision makers so that you have more information. And certainly those kind of applications are at the heart of when that team really needs to be assembled and looking at these kind of impacts. So we've seen these, we've already kind of seen these situations in some special event permit applications. Just some new ones that have come up. There was so some of those have kind of brought on at least those kind of discussions about what do the impacts from special events do. And so I think, and hope, I would be hard pressed to say that future staff or boards or planning commissions wouldn't consider the involvement of those resources and agencies to vet these kind of applications. So there's a lot built into the process itself to really help identify those and make sure that those critical stakeholders are involved in the conversations before they come even to the planning commission and the board. But I'm open to ideas.
Yeah, no,
like
I mean, I don't have I can empathize with Commissioner Marcella's challenge with this, as I think I kind of have a similar one with the backcountry, but ultimately, having the faith and confidence that at sitting, we could review and monitor those impacts and kind of watch that as that unfolds and the effect of our decisions made today. So I am comfortable with this right now.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it as it stands, with that discussion of how it is tied to the underlying, zone district intents.
So are we then directing you to just move forward to draft the resolution for further consideration? In that time, we can continue having the conversations about that, and although you've heard Commissioner Marcella's concerns.
Absolutely.
But I don't know that there's.
So I can absolutely do, I can draft the resolution. I'd love a motion to move forward with drafting the resolution and creating maybe a couple recommendations for possible modifications to the draft language to address the concerns. I can give a couple ideas, and then I would just ask that I send out, give you enough time to review it, look at it. I'll get it out pretty quickly before the next meeting, with the hope that at the next meeting we'd be able to present it for adoption. But I could get the draft out, a couple recommendations, and with the intention that we would be able to present it for adoption at the next meeting, if that sounds.
Yep.
I think that sounds good, and I'll take another read through with some of these, other concerns in mind, and really trying harder to look at the language as it might relate to that or be used to kind of thwart any concerns brought up today.
Sure, absolutely.
Thanks.
Commissioner Marcella?
I just want to make sure I understand what we're doing going forward. And I just want to make sure too, Anne, that I do appreciate you really being on top of, things that are happening in our community and making sure that we're managing them in a way to conserve, what we all love about our community so much. And I just really want to be thankful, or want to make sure how thankful I am for you being on top of that to figure out a way to incorporate that. It really means a lot. And I am on board with the intent. I just want to make sure I understand how it applies to all of these different areas appropriately, so that we're maintaining that integrity of the landscape of our community, and also allowing people the opportunity to use their property. So I just want to make sure that I understand our next step, which is you'll draft a resolution and then we will move forward, or do you need a motion today to move forward with drafting the resolution?
We'll make a motion to direct and to draft a resolution, but we're not approving the resolution. We'll approve it when it's completed at an upcoming meeting.
Okay, thank you so much.
Answer your question?
Yes, I'm good.
Okay. All right, well, I will entertain a motion to direct staff to move forward drafting the resolution with some further options regarding the conversation that we have had today.
So moved.
Second?
All right, any further discussion?
None for me.
No, thank you.
Okay, hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
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 All right, thank you very much, Anne.
Thank you. I'm going to leave with Cindy. So there's an official action record on all the other 3 files, the staff report and the statement of motion. And they're all
Great.
together so they can all get reported. So I've got them all ready for you. So those.
All right, excellent. Okay, we have item number 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10 left, and we will move on to 5, the discussion on the Lake County Financial Management System. Sorry, number 8. All right, we're gonna jump to number 8, contract with Kinley Horn and Associates Incorporated for National Environmental Policy Act review for the FCC at 700 East 10th Street for the proposal of a radio antenna. All right,
Can I defer to Michael on this one? Yes, so this is for the new sheriff's office, which will also provide an understanding radio for the new justice center. You can get the one there. So we've already got FAA approval because it's just on the edge of the overlay zone. National Historic District on the east side of town, they need to make sure that we have all the NEPA stuff approved. Even though the ground has been disturbed before because there used to be houses and buildings there at one point. But we have to meet all the requirements for the FCC to get an antenna registration number. And we've been in kind of a holding process since April 27th of this year, trying to get this done.
so the Commissioner Marcella, do you want to jump in here too? I just have a couple of questions.
Yeah, sure. So, sorry, Sarah. We went through this process to get the tower constructed, and the state is ready to put their microwave dish on the tower to connect it. But we've had kind of some struggles with figuring out how to get approval through all these different agencies and organizations. And so in order for the FCC to grant us permission to have a tower there, we have to get a NEPA study done. And so Kinley Horn is able to do the NEPA study for us at an additional cost. And I don't know what will happen if the NEPA study comes back and says no. I don't know. Michael Irwin and Ann and myself took this on from the transition in the sheriff's office. And so we're kind of floating through it as well. And Ann, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Not too much, except thank you, Michael, for jumping in there on this. I think, this was a project that none of the players are still here. And so I think we're trying to manage and get things done as quickly as possible to meet the needs of the project. Kayla and I did have a conversation this morning. We are fine with, the building department is fine with the state going ahead and putting the dish on the tower. It is structurally sound. It's had its bolt and welding inspection by a third party. So the delay has been, in the construction portion, has been associated with the delay with Excel Energy. The NEPA is typically done at the conditional use permit spot in the process. And it became an unknown until just recently, until we were trying to register the tower. So I think that everybody, that is on board, that we all have come together in a really cohesive manner, given just kind of the chain of events that led us to where we're at. But I think that it's great that Kimberly Horn is able to go ahead and move quickly. I don't know exactly, I think Kayla and Michael are still waiting to hear how quickly that could be achieved, but obviously the overall benefit to the community is sure this moves forward.
The NEPA is for the FAA, correct?
No, it's for the
For the
FCC.
FCC.
Past the FAA's hurdles, we're the FCC now, Federal
Okay.
Communications Commission. And they're requiring the environmental study.
And then,
They're responsible for the tower itself.
okay, is there any, did we already pass any kind of threshold, like going through getting a categorical exclusion, or would that be what Kimberly Horn would
Yeah, that's what
do
they're trying to do.
first,
with
and
the-
then,
They do have to fill out a bunch of forms specifically because of where it's at. But it's, you know, at one time it was Indian land too. So the Ute Indians were here. So they have to go and include all of that. The reason I approached Kimberly Horn is because we already have a contract with them at the airport, and they do all the CADXs for the airport stuff, the construction at the airport. So they know what they gotta do, just a little hard for the FAA.
are there, sorry, I don't remember what their scope looks like, is this one estimated cost?
Yeah.
What's the cost?
Like $22,000,
22,000? Jeez.
all the records they gotta go through and stuff, so.
That is rough.
Sarah, Ann and I did connect about this morning, because the state is kind of at the point where, they need to be able to hang the microwave dish or take their equipment and move to another location that's ready for the equipment, because their funding is running out for them to install the equipment on the tower that we've constructed. And so I did say to them today, we found out about needing this ASR number at the end of December of last year. Michael Irwin and I have been working since then to get one through the FAA, who then in turn told us we needed one from the FCC, and it's taken us from April to this point to understand that we needed to have the NEPA study done. And so I did tell the state that, pending the outcome of the NEPA study, we may need to figure out an alternative if it's not in our favor. And so it's really up to the state at this point if they feel like it's in their best interest to put that dish up and take the risk without having that NEPA study done, pending the results. So I mean, it's really it's kind of in their court at this point with whatever they want to do pending that NEPA study right now.
And the NEPA study is not, it's not for the physical hardware, it's for
No.
the use
For the
and
site.
The
the,
ground
For
and
the
usage.
I'm not gonna digress, I guess, I don't understand how this.
You know that.
I
They need to be
know.
shown that.
I just can't believe that's, sorry, I'm not understanding too, like all the potential development around the site that is happening. Where is this NEPA study covering? Just that property, or can we cover a larger location and get an efficiency of work being done and then charge future applicants who might be needing the same?
Possibility, but the only reason it's done on this is the federal site now.
Yeah, because they're issuing a federal permit, so it triggers. Boom.
That's the key thing. Have to meet the federal government's requirement.
Yeah, I mean, if you get federal funding or require a federal permit, then you have to go through the NEPA process.
Got it.
But I tried
That
to
makes
do it
sense. I think that was
without
missing
any
in my
study,
mind of
and
why,
they came
how,
back and said, no way.
yeah. Yeah. All right.
Just to consider this practice for the Justice Center.
Yeah.
So we'll have to have a NEPA study for the Justice Center. Is that what you said, Joe?
Because we're taking federal money.
Yeah.
Oh,
Didn't,
could we, we can't expand the scope. Sorry, were you
didn't we do extensive testing? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we have all the
Let's not
information,
get
we just
into.
have to,
I know. Give it to
Put it
them.
together and give it to them.
Right.
So,
Well, I mean,
No,
I don't
so
object.
I guess, I mean, really the fate of the tower just kind of hangs in the NEPA study. And from there, I don't know what will happen with it next. But Anne and I have tried to lead that project forward and communicate the best we can with the contractor that we have, who's also communicated to the state, kind of the difficulties that we've encountered trying to get this done. I mean, we've had an application in with XL Energy for a year for power to the site. So we're just trying to keep moving forward as best we can, but this is just the next step, I guess.
Interesting that the state didn't bring that piece of it completed.
Yeah, I think that, definitely, the towers that have been brought into the county to go through the conditional use permit process, the sites have already been reviewed prior to the conditional use permit, so would have been a good time to kind of vet it through the entitlement process,
Yeah.
but kind of looking behind us probably isn't going to be super productive
Right.
to move forward.
The problem is that we all don't know what was communicated while you're here.
Yeah, I mean, there is literally nobody involved in the project that is within current staff, city or county. So there's just been a little bit of a disconnect. And there's just no institutional knowledge of much that transpired with it, other than what we can find on the record, so.
All right. So our hands are tied. I'll entertain a motion to engage with Kinley Horn for the proposed scope.
I move that we approve the contract with Kimley Horn and Associates for a NEPA review for the FCCC permit at 700 East 10th Street for a proposed radio antenna.
Second. Any further discussion?
No, thank you. Thanks, you guys. Sorry about this. We're just trying to move it forward as best we can.
No, we understand. All right. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye.
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 All right. Apologies, Michael. I did not see that. Sorry for keeping you.
No problem.
All right. All right, then, let's see. Okay, we've got 7, 9, and 10 then.
5.
Thank you. All right, back to 5. Tim, would you talk to us about the Lake County Financial Management System, please?
Yeah. One moment.
There are other things we have to look at. Those things together. Gets referred to all those.
Okay. So as you guys are aware, the county leadership team and myself have been working a lot, for the past several months on the 2023 budget, but then also a bigger part of that is included is creating a long-range financial plan. So basically just a way that estimates revenue and expenditure activity across the county, giving you and the community better tools to make decisions with. So we work collaboratively with the assessor's office on estimating revenues for 3 years out. Soon this 3-year plan, well, with the 3-year plan, currently right now, we're looking at 23, 24, and 25 long-range plans. Probably in 24, maybe end of 23, we'll extend that out to a 5-year long-range plan so you can make decisions more effectively. So this is just some basic overview of the emerging financial policies that we have for the county, and then also the policies that will be coming before you guys to approve. You know, and a big part of this is also realizing Lake County and Lake County government is not just its own little economy, focusing on its own revenues and expenditures. We're part of a regional economy, state level, federal, national, international economy as well. So taking into account some of those things. And then of course, you know, the financial planning is being designed around policies that you guys have set, and then looking at our comprehensive plan. The financial planning and budgeting for all funds will be based on these following policies, which will probably be before you for adoption in October. But like I said, having a 3-year plan, we will continue to you know, set conservative revenue estimates. And part of that is looking through all of our revenues, ensuring that we are capturing revenues where it's appropriate, and diversifying our revenue generating abilities. The 2023 budget will look different because it will include contingency budgets, which will be under the board and the county manager's budget. So when you know, things arise that, you know, the boiler goes down in the courthouse, we have money set aside in a contingency to be able to fix that instead of having to do a supplemental budget mid-year. We are working on developing our asset management plan, and that will, you know, fold into our long-range financial plan. So that's going to look at like big things, or the asset management plan will be less than 100K, and then the other long-range plans will be like identifying areas or saving up in funds to be able to tackle larger capital projects like replacing the turf at community field. We'll use proven methods. We already do use proven methods, but it should be spelled out in our policies. So using GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, and then also principles from the Government Finance Officers Association of America, GAFR. Anyway, one of those, another association. And then, like I said, just recognizing that the county does not operate in a vacuum economically. We're part of a region, part of a state, part of a national economy as well. So at County Leadership Team, or CLT as it's called, department directors have stepped up. So it has been led by our finance director, Crystal Hewlett, and myself, and department directors have also stepped up, taking a deep dive into their budgets, going line by line with myself and Crystal through them. So department directors are now being held accountable at a higher level for their budgets and for their financial planning for their departments. Starting next year, we're going to have regular status reports. So monthly, each, you know, the Tyler system that we use for the county will send monthly reports. So you can look, so in January 23, you can look at January 22 of where your budget is at, so forth and so on. Quarterly, the board will have an opportunity to review where the budgets are at, see where expenditures are going, and ensuring that we are adhering to our budget. And then again, like looking at like rate structures, ensuring that, you know, like we just did with the landfill revenues, that there is a mechanism for regular increases, and then also reviewing our revenues to ensure that we're meeting our expenditures, or at the very least covering our costs. And again, diversifying where we get our revenues. Long-range financial plan will include staffing, so ensuring that based on the BOCC's policies and principles that services are being met, services that the county provides are being met, or that is via staffing, so ensuring that our staffing structure is appropriate. Reviewing our expenditures, understanding like where things are at, where we need things, and like looking at workload indicators, so like looking at our population or what our strategy is, or just having a longer range thought, taking the board's vision for the county and then having a longer range thought on like how to meet that that vision instead of just ad hoc hiring someone here or ad hoc doing this. The Kimley Horn was a perfect example of something that the contingency budget could be used for. And then of course, including reserves. So I have not determined yet for the board a proposal on like what reserves should be, like what level of reserves we should have, but setting a policy for the board to review on reserves. Anyway, we've done more work on the financial policies as well, which I'll go over farther, but we'll have budget policies with the goal of increasing efficiency in all county operations, promoting investment in our future, identifying new funding for service levels. Budget preparation has been changed this year. We've changed it drastically and we'll continue to fine tune it. But using the commissioner's directions as goals for the budget, setting the budget schedule, making sure the public knows about it and the public is involved in that. Ensuring the public hearings, meeting all of that, and then maybe perhaps a shift or review in nonprofit funding or nonprofit contributions, how that works, instead of engaging more with the Lake County Community Fund. And then of course budget management, so focusing on the commissioner's report, so you guys will start to get regular reports from all departments of where they are at in terms of their projects for the year, and then also in terms of their expenditures and revenues for the year. There will be some slight tinkering to the procurement code as well on level of approval that the board is comfortable with giving me for contracts, whether even if it is signing off on contracts or giving approval for department directors to move forward on purchase orders and things like that based on a dollar amount. And then, as you know, a thorough review of all our intergovernmental budgets. So renegotiating all of past agreements to ensure that they are equitable and meet the county's needs and services. Yeah, so that's where we're at. We'll have, there's obviously a focus on efficiency and effectiveness of the budget, ensuring that we're meeting the commissioner's goals. But these are the slides I showed will be the policies that we will be using, which will, like I said, will be before you in October to guide future budgets. And then all of this too, once these are adopted and all of that, these, of course, all the financial policies will be made public, will also be sent to all vendors so they understand how Lake County government operates. And yeah. I don't know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer any. Yeah.
I don't think I have any questions, just saying thanks for wrangling all this into, a tighter, more professional and helpful way of doing things.
Yeah, happy to.
Yeah, thank you. And also just to add, I think as you said, following the board policies or bigger strategies, we also have work to do to kind of get that and all those objectives clearly stated and shared and communicated with CLT. So that'll be happening, should be happening in tandem.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sam. I really appreciate your work on this and keeping the momentum going with making our budget a more professional document. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Great. Anything else you need from us for feedback?
You have a draft of the financial policies, so any feedback there is welcome. Otherwise, I'll keep presenting in bits and pieces of it.
Okay.
Or present the whole, all the policies at once, up to you guys.
Okay. October, you said was final? Or,
I think so. When I present the full budget to the board at the regular meeting, and then we open it up to public comment, I think would be a good time for possible decision on the financial policies.
great, thanks, Tim.
I also need more time, so yes, October.
Great. Yeah, that sounds good. All right. Okay.
Do 7.
7, yes, discussion on pre-application filed for USDA Community Facilities Grant for the development of the Community Justice Center. Commissioner Fiedler.
Yeah, so this relates to the congressional directed spending or earmark request that we successfully received in the federal appropriations bill. So let's make sure I get the number right, because I forget what it was. So 3.6 million, 3.575 million was the amount that we received in the appropriations bill towards construction of the new Justice Center. So while we got that in the appropriations bill, we still have to go through the USDA Community Facilities Grant application process to just sort of get through their paperwork, because it has to actually, that money has to come out of an agency. It
Okay,
doesn't just unfortunately does not just materialize from heaven. Or, you know, it doesn't come from Congress, it has to go through the agency. So Katie Welter, who worked with Chris Lloyd, the county attorney, on securing this property and on submitting the earmark application, has been working through the quite painful pre-application. So this is the pre-application process to identify issues. One part of that pre-application process is we just have to have a BOCC meeting where we all acknowledge in the minutes that we are in support of the pre-application or aware of the pre-application process. So they literally just need to have the minutes of this discussion attached. So that's really it, is just to know that we're working through, and by we I mean Katie Walter is working through the, you know, all the material that needs to get pulled together, you know, both like financials of the project, etc. And this is one of the small pieces of that pre-application.
Okay.
I should note one other important point is in our application to Congress to get in the federal appropriations bill, we specifically said that this amount would go towards the early construction costs, like site preparation.
Mhm.
There is an outstanding question in the USDA grant rules about whether you can split the project up like that. So it's not clear whether we can get the 3.6 million released for the early site preparation and design work, or whether we have to wait until the whole project is done to get the money released. So I don't know if that made sense. So we are not the only project with this question before USDA, and they're working through it. But because these monies are basically getting funneled through a grant program that it wasn't really designed for, USDA does not have clear guidance on that yet, and they are working on that. But we are doing everything we can to make the case that, you know, and our application was specifically for site preparation and design, not the whole construction project. So hopefully we're in good standing, unless we just get, as we and many other projects across the country get told no. So I'll probably leave it there.
Okay. Makes sense.
So, yeah, I'm happy to take questions, but I don't, we just need the minutes that we had this discussion.
Okay.
As far as our understanding is, we don't need a resolution, we don't need a vote, we just need to have had the discussion.
I'm happy to just make a motion to
Yeah,
acknowledge the conversation
that-
about,
It's probably safest,
so
yeah.
that, you know, so we kind of stay consistent in
Yeah,
minute taking on formal action primarily, but,
so I think the motion would be to acknowledge the pre-application for the USDA community facilities.
okay. You can,
Oh,
you wanna
okay.
make it then? if you got that in front
I
of you?
move that we acknowledge the pre-application to the USDA Community Facilities Grant for the Lake County Community Justice Center.
The pre-application. Okay,
I'll second that.
all right. Any further discussion?
None for me either, thank you.
Nothing for me either. All right, hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Great. Thanks, Jeff.
I just briefly note that the zipped file of the pre-application documents is 16 megs.
So much fun. All right, we covered 8, so we have 9 and 10 left. Item 9, contracts with Stifel, Public Finance, and Kutak Rock for underwriting services in pursuit of a certificate of participation for the Community Justice Center. Chris Floyd.
Thank you very much. The commissioners previously approved engaging these firms to assist with the certificate of participation for the Justice Center, and so this is just to essentially approve execution of the engagement agreements with these 2 firms. They have been reviewed, and you should have signed copies of both of them from the 2 consultants. And they did make any changes that are requested to be made to the agreement, so I think they're in pretty good form. One of the things I wanted to mention, and I've had a conversation with Tim too, in terms of the nature of the services that will be provided, just to make sure it's clear that Kutak Rock will be the county's, legal advisors, if you will, on this process, and they will help in terms of review, and obviously I'll do my normal stuff with it, but there is an attorney-client relationship being established with that firm, so they are the county's representative in the process. Stifel, on the other hand, is pretty much the middle person, if you will, on that. They are not the county's representative per se. What they do is they help facilitate the process in terms of the purchase of the financing, if you will. So I want to make sure that that's understood. They don't work for the county exclusively. They will facilitate between both parties. I liken it to kind of like buying a house. When you've got an agent you start out working with, and then as soon as it goes under contract for property, they turn into a transaction agent essentially, to where their role is pretty much to facilitate the closing of that transaction, not to be, specifically representing one party or the other. So I just want to make sure that was on y'all's radar.
Okay.
To understand that. Any comments, questions, concerns that come up, obviously I'll work with Kutak Rock to work through those. Again, Alan Matlotz is the one who will be working with us. We've had a lot of experience with him. A lot of our neighboring communities have, and he comes highly recommended, so I don't anticipate any issues with it. So, but happy to try to answer any questions that y'all have on it. And I spoke to Tim too about making sure in terms of for budgetary purposes, because there are certain expenses, even though the fees for these folks come out of the proceeds of the certificate of participation, there may be some expenses that the county needs to pay or reimburse during the process. So I work with them to make sure that stays kind of within what you're expecting as well.
Great. I don't have any questions for you.
I guess the one question, or just sort of comment question is, so now that we have these contracts and they'll be executed, we can start working more or less
Absolutely.
immediately with QTech Rock and
Yes.
begin the COP process.
Yes, absolutely. And they're ready for signature, so.
Yep.
Sign, and these are, unlike a lot of the attorney engagements, the nature of QTech Rock's engagement letter is pretty generic. And because of the type of project it's involved with, I don't have any issue with that being recorded along with Cycles, just so that for the publics, they understand what the role of those attorneys are as it's set forth in their engagement letter.
Okay,
But then I would still recommend that any invoices that have detailed information in them be subject to, not, be attorney-client privilege for that purpose.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure they send those to me for process, so if there is information we need to protect.
So, Chris, would you do like an introduction with us to them, or is Tim just our point person to connect us with them?
I think the Commissioner Fiedler is the one that since you're the point on the project and working with Katie and on the financing stuff, we can certainly do, if you would like to have a work session with them or whatever, just some type of a session to introduce and understand if you want them to do some sort of a summary of what to expect with the process. I'd be happy to facilitate setting that up if you'd like, just for basic information.
I think that would be great to get started and just see, do they need a bunch of information from us first, or kick off meeting right away, whatever makes sense in their experience.
Yeah, I think I'd just kind of like to revisit the certificate of participation process and make connections with all of them. I think that'd be really great.
Okay. I will reach out to them and work with Claire to get that scheduled.
it might be really nice for that conversation to have some of the long-term projections of our, financial and budget health in place. We talked about going through with the assessor's office and really like understanding what the trend could be in our projections, but that, I feel like having that conversation before meeting with them too, especially knowing that, we're still negotiating and talking through landing on a potential number and design, and so the more that we can understand before meeting with them, better. Where we create different scenarios of funding the project. Okay, I don't know, is it a problem if that conversation happens in a month with them and we can get through or two?
I think we should go faster than that.
My suggestion would be if you have availability for a work session or something somewhat informal, just to get them introduced and kind of just a general discussion, not for the purpose of making any decisions or anything like that, but just to kind of bring everybody up to speed, refresh memories and stuff as to the process. And so that way they can start working with them quicker, because we need to go on in terms of the timing for the financing, the different steps that need to happen. I think we more start working on that sooner than later.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'll double check with Colleen Canada, the owner's rep, but I think we need to have gotten some way into the process with QTech Rock before we finalize the full construction documents for Justice Center with pricing, that we send out bid packages to subs, because we need to know that we can actually get financing for that, or there's a pretty significant risk exposure.
Okay. Great. Sounds good. All right. So we are approving or considering the approval of the execution of the contracts with these two
Yes.
entities. All right.
Yes, which I think y'all have provided. Unfortunately, I didn't get the one from QTech until last night, late, so I got sent that over to Claire this morning. But no material changes, it's just mostly updating.
Accepting what you've suggested on our behalf. Great.
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the contracts with Stifel Public Finance and Kutak Rock for underwriting services in pursuit of a certificate of participation for the Community Justice Center.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion?
None from me either, thank you.
All right, Chris, does that satisfy moving forward?
Yeah, just
Okay.
to vote on the motion that was just.
You're welcome. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, hearing no further discussion from the board, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Great.
And if I could just get electronic copies of the ones, once they've been signed and recorded, for me to send back to them to cite and to that in their file as well. That'd be great.
All right, great. Thank you very much. And our final item 10, discussion and decision on Lake County's participation in the Colorado Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program, or FAMLI, presented by Tim Bergman.
Sure, so the family program was approved by voters in November of 2020. Basic gist is it creates a state-run paid family and medical leave insurance program, which will provide up to 12 weeks PTO and additional 4 weeks of leave in the event of pregnancy or childbirth complications. So I should preface this, so this applies to all employers in Colorado who have more than 10 FTE, and that includes local governments. So local governments need to, which I'll list out the options here in a minute, local governments need to choose whether they're going to opt in or opt out, and there are 2 different ways you can opt out. But if the county chooses to opt in, the contributions begin in January of 23. And then in January of 24, after a year of premium collections, employees can apply for benefits. So you can think of it as just like a paid FMLA. Premiums are set at, for 23, premiums are set to 0.9% of the employee's wages, with 0.45% paid by the employer and 0.45% paid by the employee. Unless the employer chooses to pay the full amount as an added perk. We said in January 2024, employees will apply for family benefits through the state. There's a new division at the State Department of Labor and Employment, the Family Division. So employees it will be on the employee to apply through them, similar to the FMLA application. It is important to note it does run concurrent with FMLA, you can't combine the 480 hours.
You cannot.
You cannot, of family and FMLA. There also, just important to point out as well is family versus short-term disability benefits. So the top chart shows family. And what the weekly benefits and the would be. Short-term and then the bottom 2 are short-term disability policies of what an employee could get from that. So that's just another consideration. Think about, short-term disability would does give you a better benefit, but there are hoops to jump through to get your short-term disability benefit. But it's just like a good cost frame to keep in mind. So this slide has a lot on it, but this is all the important information you need to know in one slide. So employees are eligible for family if they made $2,500 or more in wages the last 4 calendar quarters prior to January 2024. So that could include some of our part-time staff. So the leave is 480 hours, which is 12 weeks, similar to FMLA. And then if there's a complication or leave is needed for pregnancy or childbirth related complication, you can receive an additional 4 weeks of family. So this was one that we, Ally and I had a hard time kind of divining out, but Ally did figure it out on if you can take PTO while on family leave, so essentially extending the time you're away from work. So basically they can, but then they'll receive a prorated amount of their family benefit. And just the short-term and long-term disabilities, we could require family benefits to run concurrently with our disability insurance, as long as we provide the written notice of that. These are costs that Ally, our HR manager, put together, just looking at short-term disability costs, and then the last bullet, main bullet, would be the cost for employees and the employer for the family program. And so just looking around, so Eagle Town Council, their staff actually summed it out quite nicely. It's a new program and the program rules have not been fully established. The town may choose to be cautious and opt out initially until we evaluate the program. We have discussed this, the family program and participating at CLT 4 or 5 times. Leadership likes the idea of the program, but is nervous about the implementation of it, especially given the state's track record with unemployment benefits. So if the board so chooses to opt out, there is an ability to join the program. That decision has to be reevaluated every 8 years. So in 8 years, if you opt out, then the county will have to vote again to whether to stay out or to opt in. As you can see what some of your peers have done, a lot of folks are opting out. And the city of Leadville, okay, so here are the options to decide. The city of Leadville decided to do the last one, decline on a case-by-case basis, which, so that individual employees can choose to opt into family, and then we, the employer, would have to pay their premium for it. So the 3 options before you are to participate at the mandatory amount, decline overall, or decline on a case-by-case basis. And the recommendation coming from CLT, which I support, is to decline overall. It is, it is a new program. It's a great program. It'll be good. It could be a good retention tool, but I think there's too many new newness to the program and things that have not been fleshed out. I do know that it is a priority for the governor, but that doesn't mean that the program will be implemented effectively or efficiently. And the recommendation coming from CLT was to decline overall, but for the board to consider creating kind of like a sick time bank or leave bank, which is similar to what I had at the state. So, right, everybody accrues sick time, nobody really uses it, the county doesn't have to pay it out, but we could say that, each employee could donate their sick hours to the bank. So if you have a family emergency or childbirth related issue or things like that, you could extend your leave that way and have some compensation that way. So that was the recommendation coming from CLT, but they do recommend declining overall.
I had one question. So there's the 8-year requirement to have another vote. Is there an annual, can we reevaluate every year?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
8 years is just mandatory
Yeah.
to revisit.
If we opt out, we can give 180 days notice, and then employees will have to start paying the premiums. Ourselves, the employees will have to start paying the premiums. So let's say next year the program, or after evaluating the program in 2024, it runs flawlessly, the board could choose to, with 180 days notice, could choose to opt in.
Opt-in.
It's only if you want to renew your opt-out, that you have to do it
Yeah,
within that, at least within the 8-year
Yeah.
period.
Okay. And you can't, we could opt, I realize you can't take, you said you can't take both FMLA and family, but we could offer both? We would be offering both, or would be offering one or the other?
They run concurrently, is my understanding, right? Or is that
Don't
the,
think they run concurrently.
I thought that was why it was like you not, if you take both, it was my
Oh,
understanding.
it does run
concurrently, yes.
concurrently, sorry,
Yeah.
yes. Sorry, I misspoke earlier.
So you can't double dip, expand, take FMLA and then take the 480 hours of family leave too.
So you got
You
480
can or
total.
you cannot? Okay,
So you got 480 total. And the benefit of family is that you get at least some kind of income while you're out.
Right, it's paid versus the unpaid FMLA.
So yeah, so sorry, the second to last bullet, I
Yeah,
misspoke. It does run concurrently.
and just to dovetail on what Tim said about the communities around us, what they're doing. Also, there's been a lot of discussion on the county attorney's list as well, as I'm sure with your group too. And the vast majority of counties are opting out, just because it not only not fully fleshed out yet, but also the administrative burden.
Yeah.
There will be an administrative burden of having to track and apply all this stuff.
sorry, yeah. Kayla, Commissioner Marcella has her hand up. Go, Kayla.
I was just gonna say, in connecting with the county commissioners on my listserv with CCI, that most of them are opting out because they're able to offer or build an internal leave program that costs less than this for them. And so I would just be interested to see what that is, because we might be able to mirror a leave program that another community is doing that would not, like, we could maybe cover somebody's full 12 weeks at a lower cost than what this would cost us to pay per employee. So I mean, just maybe looking at all of those options and seeing what other leave policies that other counties have in place currently would be beneficial to us.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, Commissioner, and it is, CLT did want the message passed on that, like, this is a good idea, family is a good idea, and that the county should do something. But just joining right now is probably not in the best interest, for, the whole host of reasons we discussed. And, if the board so chooses, Ally can put together a presentation on what like a sick bank, leave thing would look like, and the eligibility for applying for it, and how much extra time or things people can get. We can also reevaluate our parental leave policy, and things like that, if the board so chooses. And then, or just, also considering family leave options, right? Like, life happens, a loved one gets hurt, or you get sick.
Yeah.
So.
I think that all sounds like it makes sense, and taking the recommendation seems like a logical step. We do have to give you the direction, or we have to make the decision and give you direction to report that back to the state.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we decline overall for Lake County's participation in the Colorado Family Medical Leave Insurance Program.
I'll second.
Sorry, I wasn't fast enough.
Any further discussion?
None for me, thank you.
For me?
Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. And then let's see. Last, I think we have some bills and payroll. I didn't look at the LCHHP or CHP, LCCHP minutes. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the bills and payroll for the pay period ending on August 26th, 2022.
I'll second that.
Somebody has to say so moved.
So moved.
Por favor. Haley, do you second?
Second, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Any further discussion on bills and payroll?
None for me.
None for me, thank you.
Right, hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, and I think we can do those LCCHP minutes another time or during that meeting, not sure. Cindy, did you send those to us, or was that just leftover from?
I have no idea, I don't
Okay.
remember,
Okay,
I'll check.
Sarah,
okay,
Sarah, I
that's
saw
fine.
them. I saw them in the meeting packet on the calendar invite. They're in there. I was out during during that meeting, so I reviewed them, but I would have to abstain from voting on them since I wasn't there. But they are in the calendar invite for you to review.
thank you. That concludes our meeting. There's no public left online. So at 1:09, I think we'll adjourn.
Thank you.
That's good.